let's get into it. Today's episode is not going to be that much fun for me, but should be a lot of fun for you. Alright, so today's episode is about 5 bottles that I kind of regret buying, and we're going to start from the lowest proof and we'll work our way to the highest proof, which also happens to be from the lowest dollar value to the highest cost. And with that, we've got Samuel Grant. It is a Kentucky straight bourbon at only about $20 is what I paid for it. I got this at the Cars Safeway liquor store. About 20 bucks. It is 80 proof. And yeah, this is just, it was a buy and then try instead of try before you buy. But sometimes with these bottles and doing what we do, this is just what we run into. But I wanted to let you know what I thought about this bottle. So it has a vanilla and molasses nose. The nose is actually quite nice. Even though it's at 80 proof, the nose is quite nice. It's not anything off-putting. It's just nothing to get you excited about. You can already smell that there's an oakiness to this as well. So, cheers. Yeah, it's really sweet. There's not a whole lot of anything to it. It is very, very huggy. You get a lot of warmth out of that drink, especially for 80 proof. Now, that being said, that is my first drink of the day, but even still, 80 proof is not supposed to be very warm, especially when I typically drink in that 100 to 115 proof. 80 proof just really shouldn't be all that warm. My biggest problem with this is that in the case it's 80 proof. To be honest with you, it's good, but it's not. Well, I mean, it's $17 to $20 good. You're getting what you're paying for. Me personally, I just didn't find it as good as some of the other things that you can get. For example, a Evan Williams bottle and bond at 100 proof, same price point. Really, this just doesn't hold. So I was kind of sad. I was hoping for another, bottom shelf daily sipper to come in and kind of be that for me, and it just didn't. It didn't hardly get there. So it was a good try for them, but it's probably not going to be a rebuy for me. All right, this next one is 86.8 proof. This is where you start getting into a little bit of money. We're going to double the price, and we're going to call this between a $35 and a $45 bottle, depending on where you live. Now, this is Amador, and this is a double barrel finished in Napa Valley wine cask. And I was really hoping that it was going to be great, but unfortunately, it fell a little bit. I think this could have been something, but they needed to increase that proof above 86 or add a lot of age. But on the nose, you already get the wine cask. And unfortunately, I feel like this was done with white wine cask because I'm not as big a fan of white wine, and that's what I'm getting on the nose. I get more white wine than I even get out of bourbon. And this is supposed to be a glass of bourbon. All right, let's get her down. Cheers. Yeah, definitely tasting what I would be very surprised to find out was not. I would be surprised to find out if it wasn't white wine cask, because that's what it reminds me of. And I like most all red wines, or even a red wine blend, but I'm just not the fan of the white wine. Not yet. I'm trying to work on it, but that really tastes like it's been aged in the white wine, and it doesn't feel. I will say it's very oily, very viscous for an 86 proof. It's just unfortunate that It doesn't line up with my palate. Now, I can make some really nice cocktails. This is still going to be used, and there are a lot of my friends who like white wine, so I'm thinking that maybe they will really like this one. But for me, especially at that $35 to $45 price point, and at only 86 proof, it's just not going to be a repeat purchase. All right, so the next one, this one might surprise a few people. WhistlePig 6-year bourbon. So it's got an age statement on it, 100 proof, small batch. You would think that with the success, I guess, that WhistlePig has had making ryes, especially if you like a rye, then you should, in theory, like their bourbon, right? I mean, it's 6-year-old, so it's not young. You're still getting a nice product. $50, 100 proof. That's really not a bad gig, right? Right? They're all right. Let's get her in the nose. Now this one smells like bourbon, regular bourbon, but it has almost a sour note on the nose. Now, I didn't buy this bottle, I traded for this bottle. And I traded a bottle that was basically the same price point that they hadn't had and I hadn't had, so that's why there's so much missing out of this one. It's not because I've been chugging on it. But this is only, I think, my second or third drink out of the bottle. I just, when I tried it, I was like, oh, that was not for me. But again, this is one of those where I didn't have to foot the bill and deal with the whole bottle. But yeah, you get some vanilla, you get a little bit of brown sugar, but then there's still that sour note that comes through. All right, let's get her on the dome. Cheers. Yeah, vanilla, caramel, brown sugar, and sour. I don't know why. It's been like that ever since I got the bottle. So it's not. Yeah, but there's a serious kind of sour twang that comes in there, in not a good way, that I'm just not a fan of. And so, yeah, no more WhistlePig bourbon for me. It's definitely, if they come out with another one that's different or with a different age statement or something like that, it's going to be a try before you buy it, because that's just, I just don't like their bourbon. All right. Whew, okay, so this one's the one that I've probably been dreading the most. So I am a fan of New Riff. Normally, I'm not a fan of this bottle and bond. So this was one of the very first releases that came out here in Alaska by New Riff. I was one of them. I picked up I picked up 2 of the 4 offerings. I'm not a big fan of malt, so I didn't pick up their malted rye, and I didn't pick up the other rye, their straight rye single barrel that came out, because at the time I wasn't the biggest rye fan and hadn't discovered my rye roots, if you will. So I picked up just the bourbon and the bourbon bottled and bond. This was about $55, if I'm not mistaken. 100 proof. It is bottled and bond, so it's at least 4 years old, aged in a government warehouse, or government watched warehouse, so that they make sure that they're following all the rules. Now there's some other things that they have to do as well, and I'm not going to get into all of the rules on bottle and bond, but this is bottle and bond, and it's the only one in the group that is. Even though I have 3 here that are all at 100 proof, only one of them is actually bottle and bond. Okay. So on the nose, New Riff. It is a great nose. It's not the nose that I had a problem with. The nose really smells kind of caramely, brown sugar, oak, maybe a little bit of leather. It's just a nice nose. This is what I would expect to get on a nose from a bourbon. It's not an amazing nose. Let's go ahead and get that out there. Not an amazing nose, but it is a nice nose. And when you sniff on this, when it gets you excited about what the offering is going to be inside the glass, and then you taste it. Cheers. And then you taste it, and you get tobacco, and you get leather, and you get vanilla, and you get a lot of flavors that really kind of just jump. But the downside is if you've ever worked in a tobacco bar, okay, at the end of the day, when you're finished, you can literally taste the tobacco in your mouth from stripping tobacco leaves all day. That's the finish that this gives. And so I feel like I am literally chewing a cigar through a leather belt. That's the finish that I get out of this thing, and it's just not an enjoyment. I mean, growing up in the tobacco fields and dealing with all of that from the South when I was a kid, that is not a memory that slays close to my heart. Lays close to my heart. It just isn't. That's you know, most people work in tobacco because it's extra cash money, something that you can do when you're not at your actual job to try and do things, or you're helping out a buddy kind of thing, or you're just a kid that got voluntold, which was basically what I did, voluntold with light pay. And yeah, it's just not something that you want to reminisce, right? The memories are great. The smells and flavors, not so much. All right. So last but not least, this one is not so much a bad buy in terms of flavors. This one was put on the list because of the value. Now this was $115 out the door. And I just don't think that this Remus repeal, now this is number 6, and most everybody agrees, at least with the reviews that I've seen, and I don't know if I did a video on this one or not, but I was just kind of sad that it wasn't what I wanted it to be, and it wasn't that great, especially after the raving reviews that everybody gave batch 5. So it was because of batch 5 that I bought batch 6. And another reason why I wanted to get this one in here is because they just released batch 7 of the Remus Repeal Reserve this week. I've already seen a couple of people posting reviews for it, so I will be looking for this one now that it is out. I'm hoping that it is better. The reviews are coming in that it's 7 is better than 6, not as good as 5. Again, $115 price point just kind of plays a little bit on whether or not these blended whiskeys are really worthwhile. You know, I don't know. Anyways, on the nose, this has actually got a fairly nice nose to it. Remember, this is 100 proof. Yeah, you get that normal brown sugar, vanilla, white oak. There's not a lot to this nose whenever you really get into it. It's kind of middle of the road, which was the issue at being $115. All right, cheers. It's easily the best pour on the table, but being as this is a table about things that are not worthwhile, that's not saying much. It has a little bit of viscosity. It has a little bit of that oiliness. It does sit and kind of linger. It kind of glues itself to the palate, but unfortunately, it doesn't have $115 flavors. It has $50 flavors, and I think that is probably my biggest concern. Again, it's not a terrible bottle, but I will actually go and pull my Woodford Reserve at $35. I'll pull that bottle and drink it before I'll pull this bottle. And it's not because I'm preserving a $115 bottle. It's because Woodford actually is my preference over this. That's, to me, is a pretty big deal when this bottle is 3 times the cost of the one that I prefer. Now, does that mean that they need to raise the price of the cheaper bottle? No. That means that we need to figure out how to make this $115 into something that's worth $115. So I'm hoping that you did it on batch 6, or on batch 7 rather, because if you didn't, and I get batch 7 and it's not any good, you've probably lost a customer, because I can't see spending more than $100 all the time for bottles that are just gonna sit and become a talking point about, well, I wish that I got something else. So, as you will, that is my 5 bottles that I regret buying. I hope this has influenced you in some way. And if you think that these are good, let me know in the comments what you thought. All right. Well, that's all I got for you today. Go get you some. We'll see you on the next one.